You ever have one of those moments where you blink and realize, just like that, everything you worked for your home, your peace, even your spot on this wild, salt-stained stretch of coast could get snatched away by someone with a clipboard and a sugar-sweet smile? Yeah, that was me. Don't ever think it can't happen. Trust me. Pull up a chair, I'll tell you how the whole circus started. So I done my time, Navy and all. Came back with a limp, a pension, and not much patience for nonsense. I bought this crooked little house on the Maine coast. The kind of place you can smell before you see pine, brine, the old diesel from the lobster boats. It was nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a dock that threatened to give way with every nor'easter, a boat that wheezed in the morning colder than my knees. But man, I loved it. Everybody around here just called me Captain Tom, which was half respect, half because they genuinely couldn't remember my last name. I liked it that way. Life was simple. Drop the traps, boil some lobster, maybe argue with Lester down the road about whose chowder was worse. Watch the sun bleed out behind the pines. That was peace, you know. Real peace. Until the world started changing. The old hands moved out. City folks moved in big money, big cars, no taste for mud or anything that didn't come with a designer label. Suddenly, the place was all shiny mailboxes and complaints about how the working boats spoiled their sunset views. And then she arrived. Karen. No kidding, that was her real name. Pearls, pastel sweaters, the whole nine. She buys the biggest house on the bluff, and before the paint's dry, somehow becomes HOA president. I swear, she slept with that clipboard. First thing she did? Declare war en masse. No lawn ornaments, no unregistered boats, definitely no lobster traps in her guests' Instagram photos. She even knocked on my door at 8 a.m. One Saturday wanted me to move my traps out past the cove so her friends wouldn't have to see them at brunch. I told her those traps were legal, licensed, and had been here long before her McMansion ever had plumbing. That's when she gave me that tight little smile like she'd just cataloged me for extermination. A few days in a lobster season, I go out early, me buoys are gone. Not washed away, not tangled, just gone. 3 traps vanished. You know how much those things cost? But more than that, it felt like a punch in the gut. I just knew this wasn't nature. This was someone who thought money bent the rules. I started covering my bases. Permits, photos, GPS pings, the whole deal. Even rigged up some cheap GoPros to my traps. You want to play games? Fine, I'll play. A week later, someone leaves a photo on my dormy-owned traps, circled in red marker, final warning scrawled across it. Cute, right? But I was done playing. I caught them on camera. It was Karen's nephew, Brady, and some other joker using bolt cutters on a boat stenciled HOA patrol. You can't make this up. I take everything to the Coast Guard. Luckily, I've still got friends. Chief Porter gets me in touch with Lieutenant Callahan, who's got no time for HOA cowboys. We set a trap, 5 new lobster pots, everything legal, cameras running. Didn't take long. Karen herself shows up, barking orders. The moment they start messing with my traps, the Coast Guard rolls in. Sirens, blue lights, the whole shebang. Karen goes whiter than a fish belly. Brady tries to bolt, but they've got him. I'll admit, for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. The neighborhood poured out to watch the show. Karen, reading her rights on the dock. The HOA board pretending they didn't know her. But did she give up? Please. She lawyered up. Started flooding everyone with emails about illegal surveillance. Claimed I was entrapping her. Her loyalists tried to paint me as the villain old salty dog, stuck in his ways. But here's the twist. Turns out, half my neighbors have been quietly suffering 2 bogus fines, garden gnomes confiscated, kayaks towed for aesthetics. Folks started knocking on my door. The more Karen pushed, the more people pushed back. We lawyered up. Ruth, best damn attorney in 3 counties, found every thread. Before long, Karen's forced out. The patrol boat goes up for charity. Brady skips town. The HOA board folds. You'd think that's the end, but you don't know HOAs. New community cleanup newsletter comes out, all about removing maritime debris. Their code for my traps. They even painted the patrol boat blue and called it something else, but I could hear the same engine, smell the same trouble. This time I was ready. Laminated tags, new cameras, the whole nine. Belinda next in line, sunglasses in the rain, thinks being on the board makes her special leads a crew down to the dock, kids and retirees in neon vests. They start chucking anything not properly tagged in a pile. I watched it all in real time, every sneaky word, every trap yanked. Sent the videos and GPS straight to Callahan. 20 minutes later, Coast Guard's back silent, steady, like a tide coming in. The volunteers freeze. Belinda plays dumb, just helping the environment. Officer holds up my laminated permit and reads out the law, nice and loud. That's when Karen herself pops up, trying to blend in, sunglasses low, but the panic's there. The officers call her out by name, read off the email she sent. She snaps, rants about men like me ruining her vision. No one backs her up. Phones are out, recording everything. That night, local news runs the story. Coastal HOA scandal. Federal agents intervene. I get more handshakes at the hardware store than in 20 years. A couple high schoolers even ask if I'll teach them to build traps. Next HOA meeting? Packed. Ruth reads off the list. Fake fines, threats, that poor garden gnome, even the kayak. We vote clear as day. HOA's power ends at the shoreline. No patrol boats. No badges. Land ends where the sea begins. Karen? Ordered to attend community service and workshops on legal boundaries. She sits through one, glaring daggers, then vanishes. House sells within a month. The new owners? Good folks brought over pie just to say hi. I realized it wasn't about winning. More like finally exhaling after a storm you didn't know you'd been holding your breath through. Now, every weekend, me, Lester, Dinu teach the kids how to read the tides, tie knots, respect the water. We call it lines and legacy. It's catching on. And here's the truth. There's always another storm on the horizon. Maybe some new Karen will show up someday with rules and a hunger for control. But this time we'll be ready. Because community, it's not something you're given. It's something you build day after day with patience, stubbornness, and the guts to stand up for what's right. So that's it. That's how a broken down old house, a couple of lobster traps, and a stubborn neighborhood taught me what it really means to fight for your place. Ever had to stand up for something that was yours? Seen a bully finally get what's coming? Tell me your story in the comments. What's fair? What's justice? Where's the line for you? Let's talk. After all that, a Coast Guard, the apologies, even that weird little piece with the new neighbor, see, you'd think the dust would settle for good, right? I thought so too. For a while, life went back to normal, or at least what passes for normal around here. The coffee tasted sweeter, the air didn't feel so heavy, and I'd see folks waving again when I walked down to the dock. Even Lester brought over a pie one morning, mumbled something about making amends for voting wrong, and we both laughed like idiots. But, see, here's the thing nobody tells you every time you win one of these fights. It's like a ripple in a pond. Sooner or later, those ripples bounce back. That's what happened about 6 months after Karen left. There was a council meeting bigger than usual. People I'd never seen before, some young guy in a suit with a Bluetooth in his ear, lots of polite talk about revitalization and property values. Sounded harmless, right? That's how it always starts. Turns out, the county had sold off a strip of old woodland behind my house, something about unused land and public benefit. And next thing I know, big orange surveyor flags start popping up between my dock and the tree line. The word was out. Luxury eco-lodges, all glass and cedar, blending with the landscape. Yeah, right? The only thing blending was my blood pressure into a slow boil. One morning, I wake up to the sound of chainsaws and men in hard hats. And right in the middle of it, clipboard in hand, was a new face steward, the project manager, who shook my hand with that firm, empty grip and told me, "Don't worry, sir, we're here to make the community better." That was when my alarm bells really started going off. At first, I tried to play it calm, asked for permits, tried to check boundaries. He smiled that slick, practiced smile and said, "All handle, sir. You just focus on enjoying your retirement." That's when I noticed some of my old traps, the ones I'd stacked near the trees, had gone missing. Again, déjà vu, right? But this wasn't Karen and her minions. These were contractors, out-of-towners, and they didn't care about my history here or the fights we'd already won. That night, I pulled out the old GoPros, dusted them off, and called up Ruth. She listened, then said, "Tom, you ever think maybe this isn't just about lobster traps anymore?" She was right. This was about the line where one person's rights end and another's begin. And maybe, just maybe, about whether a place like this can survive progress with its soul intact. Over the next week, I watched as the forest thinned out, machines carving ruts in the moss, and the sounds of birds replaced by diesel engines. Neighbors started whispering, some said it was time to move on, others wanted to organize, but nobody knew where to start. Then, a kid from a new, crew maybe 20, wiry, nervous showed up at my door one night. Name was Dylan. He held out one of my missing traps, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Sir, they told us to clear anything not nailed down." I didn't want trouble, just thought you should know. He looked scared, honestly. I thanked him, gave him a sandwich, and we sat out back, watching the cove turn black under the moonlight. Next morning, I found my dock flagged with a notice. Unsafe structure subject to demolition. No signature, just a stamp. Now, you tell me if that's coincidence. I called Ruth again. She's not the swearing type, but I heard words I didn't even know she knew. She started making calls, and by sunset, half the neighborhood was in my yard. Even folks who'd never stood up before they'd seen what happened last time, and they were done being polite. This time, the fight wasn't just about me. Diane, the one with the garden gnome, she stood on a crate and read off the old deeds. Lester, God bless him, even brought out his late wife's journals, showing pictures of the original property lines. The crowd grew. People started talking, really talking, about what they wanted for this town. Some wanted the lodges. Some just wanted their peace. But for the first time, nobody was afraid to say it out loud. We marched down to the council office, records in hand, stories in our throats, and we didn't leave until they agreed to a pause. For once, the news cameras weren't on the HOA drama or some viral meltdown. They were on us, ordinary folks, refusing to disappear. You know, I don't have any illusions. Progress doesn't wait for anybody. Maybe the eco-lodges will get built. Maybe the new crowd will never understand what it meant to drop traps at dawn or trade blueberry muffins for gossip at the dock. But I saw something change. People realized they had a voice. That it wasn't about yelling the loudest, but standing together, stubborn as the tide. So that's where I'll leave it for now. My dock's still here. The sun still comes up over the pines. There's a new scratch on my boat and a little more gray in my beard, but I'll be damned if I'm giving up just because somebody says progress in a meeting. This place, these peeplights worth fighting for. Ever been in a fight that wasn't really about the thing you lost, but about what it meant? Ever stand up and realize, win or lose, you weren't alone? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me what you do. Progress or tradition, who gets to decide? I'll be right here, waiting for the next tide to turn.